played the Switch 2 on every form of transportation, so I could find the best one and give it the Best to Play Switch 2 on award. We'll be ranking them in 5 categories. Playability. How playable is it? Can I utilize all features of the Switch 2 like mouse mode? Are all buttons accessible? Comfort. How comfortable is my experience? Can I fall asleep on this mode of transportation? Could I play it for several hours? Visibility. Can we actually see everything that is being played on the Switch 2 screen, or does the environment around us make it difficult? Battery. Can I charge the Switch 2 on this mode of transportation? Could I even bring a portable charger? And of course, audio. Can I even hear what I'm playing on the Switch 2, or is it just impossible? And let me tell you, some of them, it just doesn't work, especially the last one. The last one goes crazy. A bike. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I know how to ride a bike, but not well. I probably haven't ridden a bike in like, I don't know, like 10 years. I don't do it often. And when I try, let's just say I hurt by the end of it. But I'm sure you're probably thinking, is it even possible to play a Nintendo Switch 2 while riding a bike? But first I need to make sure that I can even ride this thing in the first place. It's still possible. I can do it. Oh my goodness. I probably should be wearing a helmet. That's fine. Here goes nothing. Oh. Uh-oh, I'm derailed. Okay. My elbows hurt. First of all, I should probably mention, this is probably 100% a skill issue. I just can't ride my bike without my hands. I can barely ride them with my hands. So playing a Switch 2, it's just not a thing. I just can't do it. I also don't think it's wise to play your Switch 2 if you're riding any sort of transportation. I'm in a private location. No one can get harmed aside from me. And I'm a professional. Playability. It was not playable. I mean, I guess I could click the A button, but that's about as far as I could go. So playability for me is a 1 out of 10. Comfort. I would not say that I was very comfortable. I would go into more detail, but I might get demonetized. Also, my arms hurt up against the bar, so once again, I gotta give it a 1. Screen visibility. The sun did not make this easy for me. And I guess if you were under a tree, or if it was like cloudy outside or whatever, it'd probably be a little better, so I gotta give it a 3. Battery. Now, obviously, as we can tell, you can't charge your Switch on a bike. It's not possible. It just isn't. So for that, I gotta give it a 0. Now, for audio quality, this just depends on the situation you're in. I could hear the speakers just fine, so I gotta give this a 5 out of 10. Giving this a final score of... All right, but I think it's time to now move on to the car. Now, I think this is probably the most common way that a lot of you will be traveling. So without further ado, let's just start gaming. All right, so I've been playing in the car for about 15 minutes so far. I got a few things to say. I got a sunroof. Even right now, the glare's not bad, but if I close it, it's even better. So in terms of visibility, this might be a pretty high score. And you know what? This seat, it's actually pretty comfortable. Whoever bought this car is a genius. It's my car. And as for battery, check it out. We can plug a USB and plug that in. Also, yes, that's from Starlink. If you know, you know. And boom, the battery is being charged. This one's gonna be hard to beat. I'm not gonna lie. Let's keep gaming. All right, so we're by the car. This is my car. Playability. Honestly, playability, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. The glare wasn't too bad, but it could be bad for some people. I was able to play the Switch in its full state. I had access to all the buttons. I could see everything. I could hear it pretty decently as well. So I'd say there's no compromises. The only thing I would say is that maybe it's a little difficult to use the mouse controls. Could technically use your lap, but there's not really a tray table or anything to use the tabletop mode. Comfort. Well, cars are meant to be used for long periods of time, so I actually didn't find it very uncomfortable at all. It's actually very comfortable. Now, obviously, it wasn't the most comfortable, and after a few hours, it might get a little much, but I'm also gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I'm not that picky, clearly. In terms of screen visibility, in my situation, it wasn't that bad. Even though it's pretty sunny out, the top of the car was able to keep the sun out and keep it mostly visible. So I love that. And at nighttime, it'd be even better. So for screen visibility, I'm also giving this an 8. Oh my goodness, everything's an 8 today. And as we saw with the battery charging, yeah, you can actually completely charge your Switch with the car. It might not be charging super fast. In fact, it wouldn't be a fast charger in your vehicle, or at least my vehicle. But all things considered, it kept its charge pretty decently. And in most cases, you should be able to plug your Switch in to an outlet in the cars. But since it's not a fast charger, I can't give it a full 10. So I'm gonna go with 6. It does the trick. Now, audio quality. It might be pretty noisy outside, but the car keeps the silence pretty contained. You could also plug in your Switch to a headphone jack and have the audio through the car. Doesn't get any better than that. So honestly, I mean, I gotta give it a 9. So here's the score. All right, not bad. I think it's time to go to our next form of transportation now. Trains. Let's do it. I like trains. It's pretty steamy in here. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, so far, here's what I'm thinking. The glare is much better in here than it is in the vehicle. There's like no glare in here at all. I'm right beside the window too. You might notice I'm also whispering. That's because it's a little bit awkward in here. It's not a category that I was thinking of, but yeah, it's kind of awkward on a train. Anyway, from what I can tell, this train doesn't have any power. All right, we just got off the train. That was pretty awkward. I'm not gonna lie. Now, my first impression is pretty chill in there. There was a full quiet zone. It was pretty comfortable from what I could tell, but I think we just need one more train ride to get the full experience. So let's jump back on. It's train time. All right, let's do it. Oh my goodness gracious, ladies and gentlemen. We see power. Hey, let's go. Oh my gosh, there's even one over there too. Maybe we're on a newer train. I have no idea. First off, I really don't think you can beat the view. Look how good this view is. Once again, you have to use this in handheld mode like this, which is, I mean, it's fine. It's really not that big of a deal. I mean, I guess I can use my leg if I really needed to, but there's no tray table. I'm not seeing any glare so far. It's pretty decently comfortable, so that's good. Honestly, I like trains. What can I say? They are on rails and they're fast. And as we've learned, they have power too, even better. But let's look at the first category, and that's of course playability. Was I able to play it to its full extent? Yeah, I actually was able to play it in its full extent, but only in handheld mode. I wasn't able to use tabletop. I obviously wasn't able to use it docked, but I was able to completely play it as intended. So it's about as playable as in a car as well. You just gotta hold it. You can play it handheld. So I gotta give this an 8. As for comfort, I can't say the chairs were that ergonomically sound. I mean, it does a trick. It's good. I wouldn't say they're great, but a chair is a chair. At least they had some sort of cushion. There was also armrests. That was helpful for me, especially with how weighty that Nintendo Switch 2 is. So that was good. I gotta give comfort a 6. As for screen visibility, if you've ever been on a train, as you saw in the footage, there were windows. Windows are good. I like windows, but not when it impacts how I can see the screen. Thankfully, in this case, there wasn't much of a glare on the screen from what I could see. And as we can see right now, it's very sunny outside. So I saw decently. I had no problem with it. The Switch 2 is nice and bright. I gotta give this an 8 as well. As for battery, at first, I thought we were cooked. I didn't think there was any battery or charger on it because the first train didn't have the ability to charge. There was no outlet, there was no USB port, nothing. But the second train, golly, we got them. Who knew that was even possible? I didn't think trains were that powerful. Come on now. And not only were they just powerful, but it looked like you could have a full watt charger. And so you could probably fast charge your Switch 2 on this train as well. So you know what? Power is even better than in the car because it charges faster. Of course, it depends on what train you're talking about, but in my case, on half the trains we went on, we were able to have power. So I gotta give this an 8 because you might not have it. Now for audio quality, this one is a little more difficult. It's not as flexible as in a vehicle or on a bike even, because as you know, there were people around on the train, so I can't just blast this with my speakers. In fact, there was even a quiet zone on my train, so if you wanted nice and quiet, you wouldn't want to come near me. I'm loud. So as long as you have a set of AirPods or headphones, that's when the quality would be good. But it does deduct some points off because I'm not just able to blast it out loud. We're not in that environment anymore. There's people around us. I'm gonna say it's a 4. Trains are also loud. I don't know if you heard. They're really loud. Here's the final score for trains. All right, let's go on the next form of transportation. We're just getting on the city bus, seeing where the adventure takes us. So we're about to be playing the Nintendo Switch 2. Here we go. So right away, you can tell already, there's no power supply at all. Although it's pretty dark in here, not gonna lie. So I'm hoping that visibility is pretty good. We got all the fixings like gum in between the seats. I love it. These seats are pretty uncomfortable. Technically, I could use tabletop mode if I put it on like this. Except I don't really know if I want to do that to my Switch. Getting a couple looks in here, I'm not gonna lie. Feeling pretty insecure. I say we get off this bus and recalibrate, if you know what I mean. As we can see, the bus is a very quirky location to play the Switch 2. Honestly, it's like a train, but worse in every way. Let me explain. Playability. I was able to play fully in handheld, but obviously stuff like mouse mode and tabletop weren't really an option. Still, I could play it the way the Switch 2 was meant to be played, portably, so no complaints there. But I gotta give this a 7. Comfort. This has to be the most uncomfortable place I've played, except for maybe the bike. Not just because the seats were kinda bad, but because everyone was looking at me. Though, to be fair, I was talking to a camera while I was playing my Switch, so I can't really blame them. So that's probably more on me. Still, it wasn't very comfy, and the environment itself was kinda gross. There was gum between the seats, McDonald's bags on the floor. Maybe other buses are different, but on this one, comfort gets a 2. Screen visibility. We got big windows again, but if you're on the inside seat, then really, there's no complaints here. This was like an 8 out of 10. Battery. Unlike the glorious train, there's no possible way to to charge the Switch 2 unless you have a power bank. Battery gets a 2, I'm not gonna lie. Now audio. The bus was naturally loud. That's just how buses are. And also I didn't feel like blasting my Switch 2 speakers in public for everyone, so I gotta give this a 5 out of 10. So here's the score. Doesn't look like the best to play Switch 2 on award is going to the bus, but let's keep going. Subway. I'm in a Subway. I got a sandwich. You see, I was actually going to take the Subway, but I figured it'd be a little too similar to a bus and a train, and I didn't want repetitive content, and it gave me a reason to come to Subway and get a sandwich. Business expense, am I right? All right, let's go to the next one. A boat. We're gonna test out a boat. I'm no stranger when it comes to boats. I've been on many boats in my time. In fact, you could call me a boat pro. But we're gonna test out how well the Nintendo Switch is on this boat. I have a couple concerns. Will it actually be playable? Who knows? I don't know. I also was a little bit concerned about the sun, but I'm not too worried anymore, because it's actually pretty cloudy today. So hey, not only is it not gonna be sunny out, but I'm not gonna have to wear sunscreen. That's a win for me. That's a good day. And hey, maybe I'll actually be able to see this Switch screen. And finally, the body of water. I could drop my Switch in, who knows? There's no knowing, but it's gonna be wet and it's gonna be wild. So I guess we better test it now. All right, here we go. You know, this is pretty nice. Luxurious, actually. Kind of feel like a pirate. I had full access to the controls and nothing about where I was playing made it unplayable, aside from the fact I was gripping my Switch 2 like it was about to leap into the ocean, which was valid. These Switch 2s are not waterproof from what I can tell. I was even able to use mouse mode, though I don't know why I'd need to do that on a boat specifically. One thing you might not realize is that since we're literally in the middle of the water, cell service was gone, so you couldn't really play any online-only games. This is strictly offline, which isn't really a bad thing, it's just something that I wanted to point out. So yes, it's playable, but not in the most versatile situation. At least not on the boat that I was on. So I gotta give the playability score like 7 out of 10. Now the comfort. I mean, the seats themselves were actually pretty comfy. I didn't play the Switch for hours or anything while I was in the water, but also after a while, this probably wouldn't be as comfortable as a car or a couch. The worst part comfort-wise was definitely myself. Let me explain. When I was staring at a screen while the boat rocked back and forth, I started to feel a bit motion sickness, or seasickness, or whatever you want to call it. Some kind of sick. That doesn't usually happen to me, so I gotta blame the Switch. That's just my experience, but I feel like it's probably a thing if you're gaming on the water. And again, mentally, I was not chill. I was fully ready for my Switch to fall into the water at any moment. So I gotta give comfort like a 3 out of 10. I did not feel comfortable. As for screen visibility, the boat had this little roof, sure, but that didn't stop the sun. The sun just couldn't be stopped. The glare on the screen was pretty bad. It was bright out and I couldn't really see much unless I covered it fully. And even then, it was still kind of too bright to see clearly. So this is an easy one. 4 out of 10 for screen visibility. Now battery charging on the other hand, wasn't good. This boat didn't have a power supply. So I gotta give this a 1 out of 10. We all know that the Nintendo Switch 2 treats battery as if it's a limited time feature. My guy doesn't last long. So if you're gaming on the go, I've got to show you this device that's been a lifesaver several times. This is of course the Tech 15 power bank. Let's go. Now, of course, when you see power banks, you think about using it for your phone. But I've been using this for more than just my phone. I've also been using it for, you guessed it, the Nintendo Switch 2. My goodness, the fan's really blowing. It's a good thing I got the Tech to charge it. This is the type of backup you need to make sure your console doesn't die mid-match. Can you imagine playing Knockout Tour and then your battery just runs out of juice? It would be tragic. It's got a 20,000 milliamp hour capacity and pushes up to 65 watts of fast charging power. Strong enough to keep a laptop going and easily more than enough for the Switch 2. I've used it on a long day out and the charge time is impressive. You can be back up and running before you even realize that your Switch is at 1%. It even comes with a long USB-C cable and a carrying case for travel. Look how cool this is. It's airplane safe. So if you're flying, this is the type of thing that you can put in your carry-on. And you better believe the next time I'm on an airplane, this will be with me. You also get 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port, which means you can charge up to 3 devices at once. I've had my Switch 2, my phone, and my earbuds all plugged in, and they charge smoothly without any hiccups. And obviously, the Switch 2 isn't the only gaming device you can use with this. It works with laptops, the ROG Ally, Steam Deck, literally any other gaming device you have, it'll charge that boy up. And it even has small current support for accessories like AirPods too. It also has a fire-resistant shell and 9 layers of protection, which probably won't matter unless your Switch decides to turn into a panini press again. It happens to the best of us. Also, one tiny thing that feeds my brain is the little display to show the battery percentage. It's way better than some other power battery banks that I've seen that just has blinking lights, so this is a keeper. This thing is chunky, reliable, and actually something I'd use on a daily basis. If you're someone who's on the go with your tech, especially with the Switch 2's questionable battery, this is one of those accessories that you'll actually be using for years. First link in the description and in my pinned comment. Thanks to Tech for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the video. But then there's the audio quality. Now, this depends a lot on the situation. cancellation. There were two ways I experienced the audio. With complete silence, just the sound of waves and birds and wind. It was super peaceful. Or it was with the engine running. And when that was going, I honestly couldn't hear anything. So I'm splitting this down the middle, 5 out of 10. And with those 5 categories, here's the final rank. Oh yeah, that makes sense. I think I agree with that. All right, let's keep going. That's right, we're going on a plane. It's gonna be epic. So I gotta play my Nintendo Switch on the plane. Except we got one major problem. There's no power at all. We have over a 2-hour flight. So we'll see if I can make it. Also, I'm wearing a Santa shirt, because that's what Santa does. He flies. All right, let's get on this plane. We're waiting in line now. This is Quentin, by the way. Hey. All right, let's do this. We have boarded the plane. Here we go. All right, so we're on the plane now. It's time to break out my Nintendo Switch. Now, I might have actually played myself. For some reason, I brought the all-in-one carrying case. I didn't really think about that for the plane. I'm not gonna lie. I would not recommend doing this. However, we actually have an advantage on the plane. I think you already know what it is. The tray table. Heck yeah, we got a tray table. This tray table not only saves my hands from having to hold it the whole time, but it also allows you to use other controllers. And thankfully for the Switch 2, we can actually successfully use mouse mode on the plane. Technically, there's no game that actually uses mouse mode, but I guess if you're on your way to 100% welcome tour, that would be the play. One of the big problems about this is the fact we have no power. We have absolutely zero power. Look around. Nothing. Now, I would say there's quite a lot of planes that usually have like a USB-A or some sort of power outlet so that you can charge your device, but the one we're on right now doesn't. So that means that I gotta rely on the 2-hour battery life, and I'm gonna be pretty much playing the Switch the entire time. We'll see if it lasts. I don't know. It might not. Of course, another thing, for a majority of the time, you can't actually play online. There's no Fortnite to be had. You can't do it. So your selection of games is pretty limited, but I feel like for the most part, especially with Nintendo first-party games, you should be good to go. So let's keep playing. Alright, I've noticed a few things as I've been gaming. There's like a glare on the screen because I'm right beside the window. Now that can be easily fixed by putting it down like this. Look how perfect it is. It's nice and bright, good gameplay, so far so good. Another thing I noticed, I can't hear anything from the Switch. Playing is simply too loud. So, good thing I have my AirPods. There we go. And these AirPods actually have really good noise cancellation, so I can hear everything pretty decently well. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot. Finally, I get to use the button. Wait, now I can't hear my headphones. Oh my goodness gracious. I can't actually use my headphones with airplane mode on. That's interesting. I guess I can't use any wireless controllers if airplane mode is off, which means that instantly mouse mode will not work. Okay, I think I found a solution. If I turn on airplane mode, I still can turn on something. I can turn on Bluetooth. That should be good. That was a close one. All right, we just got off the airplane. It was like 2.5 hours, but I played a lot on my Switch. Look, there's airplanes behind me. I'm standing in the middle of the airport, so this is a little awkward. But playability. I had full access to play my Switch in handheld mode. And I also had the bonus ability to use the kickstand on the plane. So that's like additional bonus points for me. Also, I didn't really think about this on last transportation devices, but having that tray table actually makes my arms less tired for a longer amount of time. So that's a dub for me. However, we did have some issues with the playability because I had to put the Switch in airplane mode, which gave us a bunch of difficulties that I didn't even see coming. Now, if you go into the airplane mode, you can turn on Bluetooth settings, so that made it a little better, and that does give you the ability to use Joy-Cons, but I didn't know that at first, so I had to like not use the tray table for the first little bit. It was very confusing, but overall playability with the tray table, using that sweet little mouse mode, it's all there, and even just a little bit more than what we've seen in past transportation devices. So I honestly got to give this a 9 out of 10. The airplane mode was giving us a little bit of difficulties, but it was almost perfect. As for comfort, this is probably one of the most uncomfortable transportation devices you can use. Not because the seats are necessarily uncomfortable, but because they're small and you're sitting down for just a very long time and it's just not as comfortable. You're also squished in between or beside possibly a stranger, and even if you know them, it's a little bit too close for my liking. Those man spreaders, am I right? But all things considered, it wasn't horrible. I gotta give this a 7 out of 10. Now, screen visibility, that's a different story. For the most part, I could see exactly what I needed to do with that epic HDR display, but you see, it was pretty sunny outside and I had my window wide open. Not only was it making an intense glare for this person sitting beside me, but I couldn't really see my screen that well. But it's easy. If I close the window window, problem solved. We're good. As long as you can close it, or the scallywag that is sitting by the window can close it, then you should be good to go. Screen visibility for me, I gotta give this at least a 7 because it's pretty controllable for the most part. Battery. This was something I was concerned on. Obviously, it depends on how long your plane ride is and if you have a portable charger or not, but here's what I determined. On some planes, there are USBs or chargers that you can use. In this case, I didn't have one, but I only had a 2-hour flight. My Switch actually lasted. I had 30% left when I was done. So this is really a 50-50 chance. It depends on the plane you ride on, so I gotta give this a 5 out of 10. Not bad. Now, as for audio quality, this is where things take a turn, because audio quality on this one is non-existent. You just can't hear the Switch at all with how loud the plane is, with how loud other people are. It's impossible to hear it through the speakers regularly. And because I was in airplane mode, that made things a little more difficult. I gotta give this a 3 out of 10. So here's the final score. I love airplanes. Roller coasters. We're at Super Nintendo World in Orlando. We're visiting Mario. I don't know if they'll let me do this, but we gotta see. Now, there are several roller coasters around the park, but I already know I can't use my Switch on the Donkey Kong ride. They won't let me. I know that it's not gonna be worth it to bring my Switch on the Mario Kart ride because you need visors. That's not gonna work. The only roller coaster I could think to do this on is Yoshi. We're gonna go play my Switch on Yoshi. All right, let's do it. Hopefully I'm tall enough to ride this. All right, here we go. Playing Mario Kart on a Yoshi. I gotta say, visibility is horrible. Yeah, so that didn't work out. But hey, the car won! Good job, car. You're the best to play Nintendo Switch 2 on, and get the Best to Play Switch 2 on award. Thank you all for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. See you later.